Ladies and gentlemen, to the World of Wrestling podcast, here today to discuss about boxing news and rumors, episode number 7. We got quite a few articles to go over today. It's actually been about almost 2 weeks since the last time I reported any boxing uh, information to you guys. So I actually have a lot of articles to go over with you here today. We got about 5 articles to go over, so here we go. First thing I'm going to discuss with you guys is about David Benavidez. So, it seems that David Benavidez is the official WBC light heavyweight champion after Bivol avoids a mandatory defense. He was stripped of the WBC championship, so Bivol can no longer be called the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world in the light heavyweight division. He just owns a bunch of other belts. Going over this, David Benavidez reacted tonight on Instagram to being crowned the new WBC light heavyweight champion by the sanctioning body after Dmitry Bivol chose to vacate the title rather than comply with the WBC's order for him to defend against him. Benavidez, who's 30-0 at 24 KOs, admitted that it's not the ideal way for him to pick up the WBC light heavyweight title, but he still intends to make the best fights for the fans. He didn't give any hints who that would be, but there are several good options among the contenders. Avoiding El Monstrio. A lot of people think Bivol was avoiding Benavidez. Fans on social media overwhelmingly believe Bivol ducked Benavidez for fear of losing to him and messing up his big payday for a trilogy match against Otter Benavidez. That's the one Turkey wants. If Bivol told Turkey he wanted to get the fight with Benavidez out of the way first, he'd have likely agreed. Fear may have gotten the best of Dmitry. If he thought he could win, he'd have gladly taken the fight with Benavidez just like he did when he fought the unknown Malik Zanad. David Benavidez is a high-risk opponent for Bivol, and his team may have seen his pressure style as too dangerous for them. Losing badly to the Mexican Monster would have hurt Bivol's marketability going into a trilogy match with Benavidez. He couldn't afford to have that happen. We don't know if Turkey would pull the rug out from under Bivol if he was beaten by Benavidez and changed his mind about putting the trilogy together. David might only need to take one fight before the winner or the loser of Bivol versus Arthur Benavidez trilogy contest looks his way to try and recapture the WBC belt to become an undisputed champion again. It's difficult to predict what Bivol, 34 years old, and Benavidez will do because both have made a lot of money in their 2 fights thus far. The third will increase their bank accounts even more to where they don't need additional finances. Both of them are getting pretty old as well. So we'll have to see if they want to reclaim the WBC from Benavidez. I think Bivol personally has more of a reason to want to do that than Benavidez does, because Arthur Benavidez, he's like 40 years old. I mean, personally, I think this last fight that these two are going to have is probably going to be his retirement match. I don't think Otter really should continue to keep boxing I mean, he's in his 40s. He's done a lot in his career. He's beaten a lot of opponents. He has a great record. And for him to just go out there and continue to box is absolutely ridiculous. Bivol going ahead and being stripped of the title, not going after the match with David Benavidez, I think probably was the smart decision because David Benavidez is not a bad fighter. I still think Bivol could beat him because he's more stylistic. He's more of a technician fighter. He's not like brawling and all that. But David Benavidez, with his pressure, I think could possibly give him a run for his money. And I think because of the fact that he was only being forced to defend one championship, he probably figured, what the hell, I'll just go ahead, I'll let go of the WBC title for now and run it with David Benavidez after I get through with better is Biaz. I think that's pretty much the reasoning behind why he gave the title up to David Benavidez. Personally, him being a coward or ducking the fight, I think is kind of a harsh thing to say. You might say, "Oh, you're just kissing Bivol's ass." I don't agree with that. I'm not really kissing his ass. I just think in a business concept, you don't want to go into a fight with Benavidez, who has a chance to win the fight. I'm not saying that he's a shit fighter, but David Morale on February 1st gave him a run for his money. So, I mean, it's a 50-50 split, I honestly think. I think you got to give respect to both fighters, and it could go either way, but I would lean towards Bivol because of his style of fighting in the ring. But, I mean, David Benavidez does have, knockout power ability. I mean, 24 knockouts out of 30 fights is outrageous. Very high probability of knockouts. And I think that would be his one shot at beating Bivol. I don't think he could beat Bivol in a points type of situation where it goes to the judges' scorecards unless he had that fight extremely close, where the fights were so hard to call between the two that it could go either one's way. But personally, I think that people saying Bivol's being a coward is ridiculous. Now, if he beats Benavidez and then chooses not to face David Benavidez instead afterwards, I think then you could say, yes, he is a coward. I think he's just avoiding this fight for now because it's over one championship. It's not like he's defending all the titles and so forth. So I think that's the reason for it. And I mean, this fight has a lot going into it that I think people are writing on and want to see possibly, or they wouldn't be doing the fight over again for a third time. I mean, both of these fights were extremely close. Very enjoyable fights, both of them. So, in all honesty, I mean, there's people that I've heard don't want to see a trilogy, but as good as these two guys are and evenly matched they are, it's hard to say, it's hard to not want to do a trilogy with these two, especially with the fact that both of them won at least one fight in each of these matchups. So it is actually a really good thing that Bivol did that, but I don't think he's avoiding Benavidez. I think he's going to face him down the road and recapture the WBC title. I just think from a business standpoint, he was just trying to put more money into his pocket, and he's going to face David Benavidez after this fight altogether. And I think that's what he should do if he really wants to, because if he did lose, I mean, he can lose to him. I'm not saying David Benavidez isn't capable of beating him. I'm just saying, with the stakes being this high, you don't want to ruin the record that he has by having an outsider within this trilogy make him possibly lose. That's just stupid. You wait after you're done with the trilogy and then you face David Benavidez to see who's the better fighter, because at the end of the day, like I said, these two guys are very, very close. I mean, David Benavidez could knock his ass out. Bivol could beat him by points. Bivol could also knock him out. Who knows? But personally, I think this was the smart move from a business standpoint. From a boxing fan standpoint, yes, I do understand that you could say he was ducking him, but I don't think that was the case. It was more, like I said, just a business standpoint of doing things, handling business with the fighter that he's had great matchups with, and milk out one more fight out of it to see where it can go. And that is the direction I think they're trying to go with this. It's a very smart business move, personally, I think. But if he doesn't face Benavidez after this fight, I think he's a schmuck. And yes, then I would agree with the fans that David Benavidez or Dimitri Bivol is just ducking Benavidez at the end of the day. So that's how I view that. And I would agree with everyone. He would be ducking him at that point. To go ahead and cover is Keyshawn Davis. Apparently, Keyshawn Davis recently this week has went ahead and seeked a new challenger. He had an original challenger for his WBO championship for the lightweight division against against someone, but they left he withdrew from the fight, so they brought in a new person called Edwin Del Los Santos. And he actually rejects the final offer that Keyshawn Davis had given him. Keyshawn Davis is back on the hunt for a title challenger. Boxing scene has learned that Edwin De Los Santos is no longer in the running, at least for the moment, to next face the unbeaten WBO lightweight champion. Previous plans called for a matchup to take place on June 7th in Davis's hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. The proposed title fight collapsed when Santos' team rejected the offer in writing and reportedly asked for significantly more money than the number the two sides reached in a verbal agreement. Neither side was able to comment as this goes to publication, though De Los Santos himself publicly confirmed that the fight is no longer in play. ESPN Deportes Salvador Rodriguez was the first to report the fight's collapse. The fallout comes just a week after all signs pointed towards an agreement in place for Davis's first title defense. Talks were productive to where it appeared that the fight could be signed and sealed in time for Top Rank and ESPN to announce as part of its late spring schedule. It would have marked the second straight bid at a lightweight title for De Los Santos, 16-2 with 14 knockouts. Not bad record with the 14 KOs. 2 losses, unfortunately, is kind of bad. If he was 16-0 or 16-1, that'd be pretty fucking good. 25-year-old southpaw from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, has not fought since a November 2023 unanimous decision defeat to Shakur Stevenson in their ESPN-aired vacated WBC lightweight title fight from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Davis, who's 13-0 with 9 KOs, won the WBO lightweight title in a one-sided fourth-round stoppage of previously unbeaten title holder Denis Bernchek. Davis twice floored Bernchek to force the stoppage at 1 minute and 45 seconds of the fourth round. The feat saw Davis become the first male boxer from the 2020 U.S. Olympic boxing team to fight for and win a major title. He claimed a silver medal during the delayed Tokyo Olympics. 10 pro wins have followed, including stoppages in 3 of the last 4 starts. The upcoming title defense will mark the second in his hometown in a 3-fight span. Davis packed the Scope Arena with an announced crowd of 10,568 for the last November's homecoming headliner, where he annihilated Argentina's Gustavo Lemos inside of 2 rounds. Very impressive. So yeah, he's looking to defend the title. There is another article, I think later on during the week, it confirmed that Keyshawn Davis will be facing Edwin de los Santos, actually, by Boxing 24 News. It states that the WBO lightweight champion will defend the title against inactive 13th ranked Edwin de los Santos on June 7th on ESPN in Norfolk, Virginia. Yesterday, it had been reported that Santos, 16-2 with 14 knockouts, had declined the offer and that Keyshawn was moving on. Now the fight is done, likely negotiating games to get the rarely seen de los Santos to agree to the price. Sneaky strategy involved when Santos was actively fighting years ago. He was an excellent fighter. He knocked out Jose Rey Valenzuela and beat Joseph Adoron. However, Edwin lost to Shakur Stevenson and William Foster. That's not good. Those defeats were red flags that Santos wasn't the real deal. Matching Keyshawn against Santos instead of one of the active talents like Andy Cruz is a sneaky move because there's not much risk involved. Padding up the record. I don't know, man. I mean, you want to increase your status, increase your stock with your name. You go against the top fighters. You don't see this in the UFC, guys. I'm sorry. You're not going to see a ranked 13th fighter who's been inactive for 2 years getting a championship opportunity. You're never going to see that shit. Never. These titles are supposed to be, and not to mention, it does devalue the belt as well. When you have a champion defending the title against lower level talent, it doesn't give the title a whole lot of prestige when you do that kind of shit. I'm very disappointed in Keyshawn Davis. He really should be facing a guy that's ranked in the top 5. That's all he should be looking at. He should be looking at anyone else that is in the lower echelon, the lower portion of his division. That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he could be looking at other guys in the lightweight division. I can't remember there's a lot. That's another thing about boxing. I've kind of slowed down with watching the boxing. I don't bet on it anymore because the last couple of times this year I've lost for ridiculous reasons because I'm having to parlay these picks, and it really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I can get good odds with like 2 or 3 legs, but if one of them loses, you're already screwing yourself. When in MMA, you can bet on one fighter per fight card and get the same numbers that you want to get with boxing, and you only do it once. So at the end of the day, MMA is the more you're betting smarter, not betting harder. You're not forcing yourself to put so much stress on yourself and stack the odds against yourself to making it where you have a higher chance of losing. I mean, parlaying with boxing's a lot easier to do than with MMA. I mean, MMA, it's possible of doing that. You pick 2 decent fighters with like minus 300, minus 400, or minus 500 in that kind of range. And you could lower it down to the minus 100 range, which is reasonable, and you get a nice chunk of change out of that. If you're only betting once, if you're only picking like doing one bet slip per week and you want to just do it strictly on one-on-one competition and not bet on team sports like basketball and baseball and football. I mean, I'll still bet on football. I know football like the back of my hand, but basketball is so hard to predict. It's up and down. It's inconsistent. Same with baseball. Baseball, if you're not following it religiously on a consistent basis, it makes it very difficult to actually pinpoint where you're going with it. Or, and the same with, with batters trying to hit the ball at least one time and getting on base. That can be difficult too. So, I mean, it's not easy. And their odds are outrageously high with baseball for betting on one hit. I mean, you're looking at minus 300s, 250s. I mean, they're kind of odd. They're kind of wide. I mean, I said odd. They're kind of wide to bet on for a batter that could possibly not get a hit throughout the entire game. Now, if you find a batter that's consistent and hits the ball at least one time a game consistently, then yeah, I mean, you're going to have a good chance at getting a W with that. But baseball's not easy to bet on. Hockey, I've had moments betting on hockey, but I do it for free on the Flip account where you could bet on virtual currency. And that, if you're like really paying attention to hockey, you could bet on I've bet on like 10 games and lost maybe 1 out of 10 and went 9-1 for the whole day. That's really good. And you could bet on the underdog to cover for like 1 goal, and you have a good chance at winning. Sometimes the underdog will win and you still cover. So, I mean, there's pluses to that. But at the end of the day, when you're having to be forced to parlay, it can be tricky, especially with boxing, because sometimes these odds do not match up the way the fight turns out to be. Straight up. I mean, minus 1,000s. I mean, come on. Get real with yourself. These fights are not that far apart. Sometimes they can be back and forth. I mean, there was a fight with Virgil Ortiz and Burchik, I believe is his name. And they had a fucking war that could have gone either way. And I picked Virgil Ortiz, and he almost lost that fight. I mean, if they would have went the other way, I wouldn't have gotten all pissy and moany about it, because it was pretty damn close, and you could have called it any which way you wanted. But continuing with this, they continue on in the story. Glassjaw Risk, he does have punching power, which is Keyshawn's kryptonite. We saw the 2020 Olympic silver medalist Davis hurt by Nahir Albright in 2023, and ever since that bad experience, Top Rank has matched him very carefully. Keyshawn has a glass jaw, so if the ring rusty Santos can land one of his big shots on him, he'll go to sleep, and Top Rank will need to put him on another rebuild job. I'll tell you what, Boxing 24 News, they really are biased. They are not professional. They have their fighters they like to compliment, and others they like to shit on. I'm not really keen on that. I haven't seen Keyshawn Davis show that he has a glass jaw, but they might be right. They might be padding his record and everything else. So they asked a series of questions. What are the reasons for Santos being picked? Comparison purposes. Shakur Stevenson beat Santos in his last fight in 2023. So if Keyshawn does a better job than him in doing so, it gives him a boost in popularity. Fans that don't pay attention to the dates and inactivity won't be aware that Stevenson fight took place 2 years ago and that Santos hasn't fought ever since. It also ensures Keyshawn's wins. What better way to make sure Davis wins than to pick an inactive fighter coming off of a loss? It's perfect. Not if you're a hardcore boxing fan, you know what the fuck's going on. And it also makes Davis look great. Fighting an inactive guy is an excellent way of making Keyshawn look like 24K gold. I honestly disagree, but this fight's taking place June 7th. I'm checking it out. I may even bet on the card, possibly. I like a top-ranked boxing out of all the other promotions because you know the fighters. You get to see a routine revolving door with these guys. I like that. I think that is good to do, especially if you're betting on this sport. It makes it easier. That's why I like UFC. It's a revolving door. You see these talents every couple of months competing inside the octagon. So that is the one positive thing, and not to mention, it's easier to evaluate who's got the better shot at winning. Boxing, honestly, even though the favorites generally win all the time, you are, like I said, you are left with having to parlay this shit to get better odds. And if you pick one fighter that fucks up and you're on the wrong type of bout, and the underdog wins, you're done. You're screwed. Your whole parlay's screwed. You lost. That's why it is best to bet individual bets. It's not good to parlay all the time. Because when you parlay, you're leaving yourself open and raising the odds of you taking an L. And that sucks, especially if you get, like, let's say you do a 3-leg and you get 2 of them correct, and then on the last fight you got it wrong. And, like, really? Or even, let's say, the first fighter you picked on the card and he loses. And then you're sitting there and you watch the other 2 win. You go, what the fuck? This sucks. You know, it takes the fun out of watching the fucking product. So, that's another thing. Another thing I'm telling you guys. Watch the sports for the love of it, not just to make money off of it. If you're doing it for the money, you might as well not even bother watching. Just place your bet and hope for the best. That's it. But me, I think this is not a good move. I think if people research this stuff and really take interest in the sport and see what the opponents these guys are facing, and a guy like Santos who hasn't boxed since 2023, and it is funny, Davis and Stevenson are both good buddies to each other. So it is kind of funny. Top Rank is padding his wins, making him look good, and giving you this false sense of security that he's a safe guy to, let's say, if you're betting on him or something like that, oh, you got an excellent shot at winning. That's shit, man. It doesn't help make him look good overall, and it doesn't help the championship's prestige. That's just my viewpoint on it. Alvarez in talks about possibly retiring after his 4-fight Riyadh season deal ends. I'm not surprised by this by any means, and I can tell you why. The reason why I'm not against the idea of him retiring, he's in his late 30s. I think he's like 36, 37 years old. And in boxing, that's old. I mean, you're pushing it. I mean, I've heard of, fighters making it into their 40s in boxing. But even though they make it that far in their career and so forth, it still isn't a good idea. I mean, Canelo, if he was smart with his money, which he made plenty of, I'm sure he's a fucking multi-millionaire. I mean, if he's got that kind of money he's made off of these fights, and he was smart with it, he doesn't need to do this shit no more. He could be a commentator in boxing. He could be a promoter of his own promotion, develop his own fighters, train his own fighters and so forth, like Floyd Mayweather does, and do shit like that instead of, continuing to take further risk of damage to his brain, getting further concussions in his old age and so forth. He's got so much other outlets that he could go about doing that he could make money off of. Him being a promoter like Oscar De La Hoya is doing, I think would be excellent. He has his own promotion too. It's I think it's Canelo Promotions. Um so I mean, if he's got that going for him, I would just, honor the contract that you signed and walk away at that point because there's nothing more he needs to really prove. The only fight that I could see him going after still before he retires is the Bivol fight to get the revenge from that loss he received from him. But other than that, I honestly don't see any any reason for him to continue to box because he's pretty much done a lot in this sport that most fighters can't say they've done. I mean, the only one that's above him is Floyd Mayweather. So, I mean, he's a great fighter. I mean, he's had opponents, I would question his level of talent of opponents that he's faced. But overall, even with all these, he's had over 60 fucking fights. And to only have 2 losses under your belt to fucking Bivol and Floyd Mayweather, that's a pretty damn good career in my book. I mean, he should have had a couple more losses than just that. Shit. So, this article goes on to say, could it be that Mexican superstar and for many the face of boxing, Canelo Everett calls it a career after 4 more fights? Canelo, as we know, will face William Skull on May 4th. This fight, the first of his 4-fight deal with Turkey, and Canelo, who will then fight Terence Crawford in September, which is a big fight. That, personally, I think he should just call it over. That's going to be his biggest fight out of these 4. There's no way in hell he should even face anyone after that. Him and Terence Crawford should both be retired after this fight. They both have done a lot for this sport. And they're up there in age. If I was Terence Crawford, I'd be retiring after this fight. All being well, of course, spoke with TMZ Sports regarding the possibility of him soon walking away. The other 2 fights of the deal are yet to be announced, and who knows, maybe Skull could pull off the upset, or perhaps Crawford could do so. But if Canelo says he has already accomplished everything in the sport, and that he's eyeing the exit door, I fought everybody. I fought the best. I won a lot of titles in different weight classes, Canelo said. I have been the pound-for-pound king, fighter of the year, everything. If we are talking about money, it's never enough. But it's not just about money. It's about enjoying everything. I'm still enjoying boxing. That's why I'm here. I'm going to do my thing, and then at age 37, 38 is the moment to go and retire. Canelo turns 35 in July. Okay, so I was wrong about that. I was a few years ahead. So by the time he has completed his 4-fight deal, he'll likely be 37 years old, maybe a little younger, and maybe a little older. And that could be it. With Canelo walking away at 66-2 and 2 draws, assuming he wins all 4 upcoming bouts. And if this does prove to be the case, we will miss Canelo when he's gone, as we do with all the great ones. Who the 3rd and 4th fight in the Saudi deal will be against will, of course, prove to be interesting, but could it be that Canelo never loses again and that he does indeed walk away after the 4 fights are done? If so, only Floyd Mayweather and Bivol will go into the history books as having beaten Canelo. And like I said, that's a fucking amazing record to only have those 2 defeats against those level of fighters. That's very impressive. And Canelo should be extremely proud of himself and what he has done in boxing. The guy is fucking amazing. And as to where Canelo will deserve to be placed among the all-time greats, well, that will no doubt prove to be topic of much discussion when the time comes. When Canelo has thrown his last punch, Some experts have already gone on record as saying Canelo just might deserve to be ranked as the greatest Mexican fighter ever. I don't know about that. I mean, Oscar De La Hoya might complain about that. He had some pretty amazing fights, history book fights. He may have suffered more losses than Canelo, but he fought higher level fighters than Canelo did. Canelo didn't back down from a lot of fighters, but Oscar had some fucking amazing fights with people that people remember him going up against, like fucking Shane Mosley on I think 4 different occasions. I mean, whether he won or he lost, he had memorable fights that people absolutely fucking loved. So, I mean, to say that Canelo is the greatest Mexican fighter ever, I don't know about that. It's kind of a toss-up between him and Oscar De La Hoya, in my opinion. But, you know, it is what it is. That, of course, is a huge honor, and not everyone will agree. So that's pretty much all they had to say on that article. Like I said, I think honestly Canelo is on the right path of what he needs to do. Honor the 4-fight deal that he signed. By the time he's done, him being 35, I'd say yeah, by the time he does the other 2 fights, he'll be 37 years old. If he wants to just blaze through it and get it done and over with, have 2 fights next year, and just be retired, and that's it. I mean, if that's the direction he wants to go, by all power to him. I agree with him on that mindset to just get it over and done with, and just end out on a strong note, personally. But yeah, I think Canelo definitely one of the greatest fighters of all time. There's no doubting that. But to say he's the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, the number 1, I don't know about that. Because he didn't have the type of level fighters that Oscar De La Hoya did over his career. So I'd question that, but still, at the same time, Canelo Alvarez had a hell of a fucking career, and whenever he decides to hang it up, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame of boxing. Straight up. I'm going to discuss about Jaron Boots Ennis and his opponent Stenanos. This is going to be a fucking huge. This is going to be a really good fight. This is on the Zone for free. You're not going to have to pay for this on pay-per-view. This is a huge fight, and it's in New Jersey, Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I got to tell you guys, this is going to be fucking entertaining as hell. We got a fight between a challenger against Boots. Probably one of the best challengers that Boots has ever faced so far in his career. This guy, Stanos, is 15-0 with 9 KOs. That is an impressive record. And Stanos is very determined to actually pull off a huge upset against this guy, Boots Ennis. And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what I'm going to watch. I don't know if I'm going to watch the UFC pay-per-view for 3/14 the day of, or watch it the next day, or watch this live, or watch it the next day. But one of the two I'm going to watch live the day of. I'm really torn between the two. I wish I could I wish they weren't overlapping each other, because both of these events are going to be fucking huge. UFC 314 has got an amazing card. Looks very exciting from top to bottom. I mean, even the prelims look like a good showing for the audience to watch for free if they can't afford to pay for the pay-per-view itself on the main card. So, I mean, UFC 314 looks good. And this event, man, is going to be awesome. There are some good fights on this card too that I'm looking forward to. The top three fights on the card that's going to take place on this this Ennis Boots Ennis fight card should be pretty entertaining to watch, even if you're not, well in tune with the boxing scene of the sport. But this is going to be huge. I'm thinking this is going to be extremely close. They got fucking Ennis with a minus 625 on my bookie, minus 550 on Hard Rock Bet. DraftKings, I think he's like a minus 600 or something like that. So the odds are kind of like all over the place. So I'm not sure exactly how to look at it as, but personally, this is pretty big. Uh, this is going to be a big fight, but let me get into the conversation, what this article is talking about. Commentator Chris Algieri says that IBF welterweight champion Jaron Boots Ennis has a difficult fight ahead of him on Saturday against the WBA champ Amantas Stanos. The two 147 champions will headline live on DAZN this Saturday, April 12th at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The venue favors the East Coast fighter Boots, who comes from Philadelphia, but it might not matter. Stanos' punching power and skills could be too much for Ennis in this fight. Algieri states that the things that Karen Zahan, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, I apologize, was able to do in his first two fights against Boots that gave him trouble. Stanos can also do, but with more power and explosiveness. Ennis, who's 27 years old, looked confused and technically outclassed by Chukazan in their first two fights. His punching power saved him. If not for that, Boots would have lost both fights because he was getting outboxed by the Ukrainian from A to B. I don't see that, but okay. Whatever you say, man. You're reaching for the stars, buddy. I saw him winning generally, I think, like 8 out of 12 rounds. And he also knocked him out, too. I mean, I don't know, man. Whatever. In the first fight, he knocked him out. He beat him by technical knockout, I think. And then the second fight, it went to a judge's scorecard and he won. I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but whatever. Continues on. I love this fight. You've got two guys in their prime. It's the absolute number one and number two in the division, said Chris Algieri to YSM Sports Media, talking about Jaron Boots, Ennis versus Amantas Santinos, welterweight unification fight this Saturday in Atlantic City. Boots Ennis promoter Eddie Hearn had been hyping him up after he signed him to a multi-fight contract with Matchroom last year. However, Hearn doesn't sound as excited about him after Ennis' performance against David Avasarian and Karen Chuz, whatever his last name is, Chukahadzan, I believe is how you pronounce it. The honeymoon appears to be over. Hearn recently warned that Ennis can't afford another performance like the one he turned against Karen. One gets the sense this might be the last fight for Boots with Matchroom if he fails to look like 24 karat gold like he had been when he signed with them a year ago. Ennis hurt his popularity further by rejecting a fight against Virgil Ortiz at 154 last February, which would have given him millions and some believe made Hearn's investment in him worthwhile. Turning down the big fight payday opportunity was a blowout move for Boots because his marketability would have soared if he'd won. Was it fear? It's not to see it that way. Yeah, I agree with that. That's pretty stupid. You turned down a deal with Virgil Ortiz. I think he was supposed to be facing Virgil Ortiz in that Saudi card that had that big wad of fights that were really good, and any one of them could have been marked as the pay-per-view main event. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. That was stupid of him to pass up that fight. Win, lose, or draw. I mean, you're going against Virgil Ortiz, bro. I mean, your stock would still go up by wanting to face a guy like that. Wins do not always get you where you want to go in boxing, from what I've noticed. It's not just winning the fights, it's who you're beating. If you're not beating big names and taking challenges and risks in your career with your record, and you're not wanting to face the best of the best, your stock in boxing goes down tremendously. People start losing faith in you. Start thinking, oh, the record is a bunch of phony baloney bullshit because he ain't facing the level of talent that match his level of fighting skills. And when you do that and you don't go ahead and you want to you don't challenge yourself to face the best of the best, your stock goes down. I don't give a shit what it is. And that's what I hate about boxing. MMA, UFC, you do not see that shit. The best of the best fight each other based on their ranking and who's moving up and who's moving down. That is it. That's what's great about UFC, and I think that's the reason why UFC has succeeded for so many years and have gotten more popular than boxing, even though there's more money into boxing than there is UFC for the fighters, that is. As an overall business, UFC is a fucking juggernaut when it comes to MMA promotions. I mean, they are outrageous with the money they've earned. But the fact of the matter is that boxers earn more money than MMA fighters because they're independent. They're dependent on what they do on their own, who they pick. The promoters don't really control the decisions on the money situation. They just pretty much pick the fighter, sign them on to the promotion, and that is it. And they face guys within their own promotion. And if they want to span out and do crossover promotional fights with the other guy from another promotion, they do that. And sometimes it's make or break it type of situations for them, and they don't make it. Ennis did not make... I agree. I think it was the wrong decision. And I think that's why Eddie Hearns is disappointed in him, because Virgil Ortiz is a big name. This could have been put on its own fight card as a headliner, and he fucking just threw it away. And I do remember that fight was supposed to happen on that Saudi Arabia card with Bivol and in that rematch, that second fight. Now it's turning into a trilogy, and he didn't take the fight. He bailed out on it and walked away. It was a fizzled fight. That was stupid. I disagree with his motives, and it was because he just didn't want to face him. That's retarded. The writer of this states that stylistic nightmare is what this is. I rate Stenados very high, and I have for a long time, so this fight makes too much sense. It's like, what's going on? We're actually getting a fight when we're supposed to we're getting a fight when we're supposed to happen, where it's supposed to happen. We're not dragging it out. We're not over seasoning them. We're getting the fight when we want it, said Algieri. Stenados and Ennis, it's happening at the perfect time. Listen, it's not an easy fight. Do I lean for Ennis? Absolutely. I lean for Ennis against anybody but Stanos. Stylistically, he's a nightmare. He's in your face. The things that Karen Jahazan was able to do with Ennis that gave him trouble, Stanos does it more explosively with bigger power, said Algieri. I'll tell you what, I'd be leaning towards betting on fucking Stanos. Because his odds is pretty damn good. You get plus money with that shit. I mean, let's say your unit size is like fucking $50. Bet 25. Break it down to a half a unit. There you go, man. You'd make a nice chunk of change. And you'd only be risking 25 instead of 50. I'd say that's a pretty damn good deal in my book. I'm just saying. But yeah, it's just my viewpoint on that, man. But yeah, I think Ennis is fucked up big time, and it shows in his character that he's concerned about raising the stakes with his career and everything. So it just goes to show you about Ennis right now in his career. Now, continuing on with Jaron Ennis addressing future fight with Virgil Ortiz. He prioritizes undisputed welterweight status. So Ennis says one day he and Virgil Ortiz could fight in the future, but he's not ready to say when that'll be. Ennis is still focused on capturing all the belts at the welterweight to become the undisputed champion before moving up to the 154. Boxing fans on social media don't believe Ennis. They think he's just saying he'll fight Virgil for clout purposes, because if he really wanted to face him, he'd have accepted a career high payday on the Riyadh season card on February 22nd. The money he'd have made fighting Ortiz on that card is believed to dwarf what he's getting for his unification fight against WBA welterweight champion Stanos this Saturday night on April 12th. Jaron could have fought Ortiz Jr., but instead he's chosen to stay at 147 and fight the smaller, weaker, less talented fighters. I don't know about that, but given the politics involved in making fights for belts, it could take years before Ennis captures the remaining belts and moves up to 154 for a fight against Virgil Ortiz. By then, Ortiz could move up to 160 pounds, which then at that point, the fight won't even happen, so it's all a bunch of blue-ha talk bullshit. Ennis promoter Eddie Hearn must be frustrated at his unwillingness to move up to 154 to take fights that would bring in more money than what he's getting by staying in the safety of 147, fighting the no-name guys if it's not profitable for Hearn for Ennis to stay at 147 rather than go up to 154. The article just keeps on going with what Ennis actually said in quotations. So that was pretty much what stated. I agree. I don't understand why you would pass up a huge fucking payday, increase your stock. You could easily drop right back down to 147 after the fight and go right back to doing what you were doing. To me, it makes absolutely no fucking business sense to me to pass up a huge fight like that, take that, move on to later on in the year to face Stanos in a rematch, and not in a rematch, but to collect another championship in his 147 so that he could earn more money, beat a big name, and you know, he could drop right back down to 147 after the fight was done and over with if he wanted to, and go right back to his mission, which is collecting all the welterweight titles at 147. I mean, that's plausible. Isn't that possible to happen? I think it is. I mean, tell me in the comments down below what you think about that, but I think that would be the smart move for Ennis to do, or would have been the smartest move for him to do. I mean, he still could go after this fight with Virgil Ortiz after he finishes the fight with Stanos. If he wins, that is. If he wins, great. I'd say move up to Virgil Ortiz for one fight and then drop right back down to 147 and defend the titles. That way you're meeting your requirements to hold the titles, so they're not taken away from you and you're not being stripped of them. This article for the night, for Boxing News episode, or Boxing News and Rumors episode number 7, I'm going to discuss about Joseph Parker being a little upset about the situation with the heavyweight undisputed championship contest that could take place for Joseph Parker and Alexander Usyk going one-on-one. Joseph Parker fans are angry today after learning that the WBO has received a petition for heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk to fight IBF champion Daniel Dubois for the undisputed championship next. This is a rematch, and I agree this should be the match that happens first. The WBO has received the petition and will decide whether to allow the Usyk versus Dubois 2 rematch to happen next rather than the mandatory Parker fight. Business-wise, Usyk and Dubois 2 is the bigger fight because it involves the undisputed championship. I 100% agree. I think that that fight I've watched, the first one, it was pretty close. And Dubois looked like he could have won. He hit him in the belly, in the stomach, but the referee thought he hit him in the groin by accident, so it didn't count as a knockdown. And, man, he hit him pretty damn good. And I saw the replay of it, and it looked like he hit him right in the gut, not in the groin. But unfortunately, it wasn't called as a knockdown, so it didn't help Dubois too much. Dubois has gotten better since Anthony Parker fight. He's been great since that fight with that knockout. So he's been doing really well for himself. And yeah. he's on a roll as of late. So hopefully this fight does happen. They think that the WBO mandatory between Parker and the winner could then fight, and that makes more sense. I agree. Parker is actually 36-3 with 24 knockouts, became the WBO mandatory by knocking out the out-of-shape 300-pound Martin Bakhoil, who actually came in a last-minute notice, by the way, in the second round on February 22nd in Riyadh. Bakhoil was brought in as a replacement opponent for Daniel Dubois, who pulled out of the fight due to a sudden illness. The undisputed clash between Dubois and Usyk would be massive, especially if staged at Wembley Stadium in London. I would definitely buy that pay-per-view if that takes place there. That's huge. The former WBO heavyweight champion Parker has put himself in a position to challenge for the title against Usyk by beating these fighters. He faced Martin Bakhoil, Zhali Zhang, and Deontay Wilder. 3 decent names, actually. Parker has earned a title shot against Usyk, but Dubois match would likely make more money. There will be huge interest in the clash compared to one involving the rather dull Parker, who does a lot of holding and moving now that he's changed his fighting style. Some fans believe Dubois was robbed of a victory in his fight against Usyk on August 26, 2023 in Poland. Dubois dropped Usyk with a beltline body shot in the 5th round of the contest that kept him down for 5 minutes, rolling around on the canvas in agony. The referee ruled it as a low blow, but some fans think it was a legal shot and Dubois would have won by a 5th-round knockout if it had been ruled as a beltline shot. Usyk came back to stop Dubois in the 9th round after he wore the bigger, stronger fighter down with sharp punches. Some people think that Dubois quit when the going got tough because the punch that finished him didn't look particularly hard. And that's pretty much it. I agree. I think that Dubois versus Usyk is a very big fight. I think they should do that fight first. Parker can wait. It's not like his opportunity of challenging for the belt is going to go away. He can always stay in shape, train, and everything else. Prepare for this fight for the amount of time he has to wait for the fight to happen, and then be ready. It would actually make it easier for Parker to do that and give him a little bit of a head, somewhat of an advantage over Dubois or Usyk. I mean, Usyk is he's a fucking great fighter. Why he's continuing to fight after he beat Tyson Fury is beyond me. I don't understand the logic there. He beat one of the biggest names in boxing, not once but twice. Won all the belts. Became an undisputed champion in heavyweight division. He was a light heavyweight champion at one point in time in his career. And he went ahead and he wants to continue to fight and face Dubois, who I think could probably beat him this time. I really would side with Daniel Dubois in this situation. I don't know, man. I think it's a risky move. I think it's kind of a way of tarnishing your career. You're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage. Dubois is he's gaining momentum in boxing right now. He is kicking some ass. I was really shocked Anthony Joshua, lost to Daniel Dubois last year. I really thought Anthony Joshua was going to walk away with the W here. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. So, I was shocked by that shit. Daniel Dubois, I'm telling you, man, he might actually win this shit against Usyk in a rematch. I really believe that. But, hey, that's just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'll definitely get back to you on that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And I'll speak to you guys tomorrow about, well, not tomorrow. I'll be doing another review on WWE SmackDown later on this weekend or by Monday or Tuesday, and give you guys my insight on pro wrestling if you guys are interested in that side of things on this channel. But at this time, this was your Boxing News and Rumors episode number 7. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you guys again soon. Bye.